Now let's take a look at this. It says East-West. For centuries, interactions between East and West have profoundly influenced menswear across the globe. As shown in at-home wear, this first manifested in the West during the 17th and 18th centuries. 17th and 18th centuries, we're talking about the 1600s and the 1700s. It's confusing, I know. 18th century, which is the 1600s, and the 18th century, which is the 1700s, when upper class men relaxed at home by wearing informal robes that were inspired by Eastern styles. And in this case, it doesn't mean like the East Coast of the United States, it means east of Europe. So they're talking about Asia, they're talking about India and China, Japan. The tradition persisted throughout the 19th century and well into the 20th, the 1800s, and the 20th century is the 1900s. So what century are we in now if the year is 2020? 21st century, you're right. Smoking and leisure showcases the specialized ensembles, an ensemble is like the outfit that you're wearing, that emerged in the 19th century, 1800s, smoking in favor of cigars and cigarettes. This is your teacher, Mr. Green, reminding you it's not a good thing to do. We know that now in the 21st century. Leading to a trend in Turkish tobacco and Turkish-style smoking accessories in England and France. Smoking jackets and caps protected a man's hair and clothing from the smell of smoke, while allowing him to express a measure of fashionable extravagance that he would not otherwise display. Kind of fancy-looking hats and jackets and kind of showing off a bit, right? Examines how international commerce, like with the money, and trade has resulted in countless examples of the cross-fertilization of styles, motifs, and textiles. Textiles is another word for clothing and fabric. For example, European merchants and diplomats in locales such as India and the West Indies were unaccustomed to the local climates and adapted by altering the fabrics and design of their clothing. If you are in a hot place, you don't want to wear heavy clothes that are designed for a colder climate. Just like right now on this field trip Friday, I'm wearing a heavy wool sweater. We're on this trip to the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, and I'm wearing this heavy wool sweater because it's a virtual tour. We're not actually in Los Angeles. We are still here broadcasting live from New Bedford, Massachusetts. And as global trade increased, Eastern motifs were creatively translated into designs for Western markets, such as the Chinese-influenced patterns popular in the 18th century, known as the 1700s, inspired paisley designs in the 19th, the 1800s, images blending multiple influences in the 20th and 21st centuries. Like right now, or 21st century, like right now in the year 2020. Look at how leaders in Japanese fashion design have referenced their Eastern heritage by making avant-garde Western styles. Today, they are joined by a growing number of designers who are defying geographic boundaries and traditional clothing conventions in their quest to create innovative fashion. So people are always trying to learn a new language, you interact with a new culture, and you learn a little bit more, and people come up with new ideas, right? When we all work together, we come up with new ideas. So let's. So here they have some of the. Whoops! Somehow we just backed out of the. Oh, hello. Here we go. This is where they're talking about east and west. So you can see maybe this is like one of those hats, an extravagant hat and a jacket. The card out there was saying that they would wear this to keep the smell of smoke off their bodies and out of their hair, but they also were trying to look kind of fancy as they went. And you can see some of these jackets that have an influence from one culture, but they would wear them in Europe. And by wearing them in Europe, they would show that they had money and they had experience and they knew about what things were like in this other culture. But then even in other places, people might take uh, fashions and designs from one culture and then try to incorporate them into new styles. So you have these long jackets here. These look almost like something that people might wear today in the 21st century. That's pretty cool. And that's east-west. Now let's see, do we have any more designs over here? Oh yeah, look at all these suits and tuxedos. So these look to be more formal clothes, right? Again, you wouldn't wear these, on a farm. You wouldn't wear these clothes if you were um, on a fishing boat, right? Because you wouldn't want them to get dirty. But if you're just walking around and showing off that you're got some fancy clothes, then you can do that. Although now look at these clothes; these look a little bit more like working clothes, right? Simple, not much extra things added on them. They don't have lots of bright colors, right? So we have all of that. So now we're going to keep moving this way. And I think, let's see what other kinds of exhibits we have. So here's some more, look up this way. We got. So what century, if you're looking at these kinds of clothes, what century do you think of here? Does this seem like the 20th century, the 1900s? Or the 21st century, like 2020? Does it seem to look like the 17th century, the 1600s? These look like swimsuits. I think these are things that you would wear swimming, right? And they got some cards over here. We'll keep it moving. We're at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. And this is still, got some more menswear over here. This appears to be some more suits. These are like rockers over here. The Splendid Man. Somebody who's trying to show off again, trying to look cool. As explored in the dazzling examples of glitz, court dress. Now, when you go to court and you have to sit before a judge, and they're not talking about court like a tennis court, but they're talking about court like the court of a king, like a big hall where a king or an aristocrat or somebody who's powerful has money, has this great room and just brings other people who have power and money, and they all stand together and show off their fine clothes, their glamorous clothes. Court dress in the 18th century, glittering precious metals and stones, garments heavy with gold and silver embroidery, shining sequins, gemstones, and metallic lace. Guilds of highly skilled professional weavers and embroiderers kept the aristocracy supplied with new and more ostentatious finery. In animal we look at the significance of and changing attitudes toward clothing derived from animal products. Clothes from an animal. They have to kill an animal in order to get the clothes. So, like the skin of the animal, or maybe like it could be leather or fur, that kind of thing. The use of animal fur for luxurious apparel was the prerogative of society's elites, the people at the top with the most power. Leather has long been used for utility, a connotation that persists with motorcycle gear or aviators' jackets. Because think, and so if you're riding a motorcycle and you fall off the motorcycle, it's not going to cut up your body as much because you're wearing that animal skin, that leather over top. And status with designer fashions and exotic skins. Floral patterns are today primarily associated with women's clothing, but for a long time, menswear was festooned with decorative flowers as well. The fashion for florals, think flowers, reflected a broad interest among Europeans in plants and flowers, driven by illustrations in botanical books and exploration or trade voyages that brought back new species. It was only in the mid 19th century, talking about in the mid 19th century, 50s, that the motif started to be regarded as strictly feminine. Very interesting. So, men used to wear lots of floral clothing in floral patterns in Europe, and then for some reason, in the mid 19th century, they decided that it was just for women. It's almost as if it doesn't really matter what kind of clothes people wear. People should wear what they want. Though in recent years, florals have begun to make a comeback as a component of dress for the elegant male. Color is one of the defining factors in the contemporary fluorescence of the splendid man, evident in the growing acceptance of a broadened color palette in menswear. So it's saying since the mid 19th century, with a few periodic exceptions, men's business or formal dress has been somber, been kind of sad, away from these loud colors and bright patterns for business. With a respectful bow to their predecessors in the 18th century, the 1700s, and be truly splendid, bathed in color, steeped in choice, and adventurous in style. So let's take a look at some of these adventurous floral looks. So we see the patterns over here. This is a little more adventurous. Look at this jacket and the cap. And there's like some embroidery. See, this is a little more show-offy, right? This looks like a 21st century look, but it's not very somber at all, right? I don't see anything kind of plain colored. Here's some black leather for utility. And also some more splendid looks here. This is kind of glittery and shiny. We have the flowers, these patterns with the bright colors. They attract a lot of attention. Think. Imagine if this suit were talking, what would it say? And how would the way that this suit talks be different from the way, I don't know, this jacket and these pants talk? Fashion is its own kind of language, much like